In this week's class, we will talk a little bit about how people express gender and how gender is expressed in ways outside of the gender binary in cultures as well as in the U.S. as well as others around the world. First of all, many transgender individuals still conform to the gender binary. People who transition, transsexuals who transition from male to female or female to male, still oftentimes will conform to the gender binary by expressing feminine or masculine gender expressions. This is the way that people pass. Passing is being able to move through society, being able to move through one's own culture without being identified as somebody outside of the gender binary. For many people, it's comforting for them to be in that situation because they can move freely and comfortably through their society without being discriminated against or being treated in a way that's just makes them uncomfortable. People may decide not to pass purposefully, may challenge the gender binary, and in so doing, make a statement that to society that the gender binary is not an accurate way of viewing individuals, and so we do have individuals who really push the envelope and cause people to stop and think about this idea that there are only two boxes that one could check. Transphobia or trans discrimination. Transphobia is actually the fear of transgendered individuals. Discrimination is probably a better term. But people do react differently to transgendered individuals in our society. A recent study by Norton and Herrick showed that the views of transgender people were associated with attitudes that people held toward gay men, lesbians, bisexuals, but that the views that people had of transgender people were significantly less favorable than these other groups, especially the views of heterosexual men. What they found was that negative attitudes toward transgendered individuals and others were associated with the degree to which someone endorsed the gender binary. They had higher levels of authoritarianism. They were politically conservative. They were anti-egalitarians. And for women at least, they were more religious. So even within our society, there are segments of our society who are more likely to be discriminatory toward transgendered individuals. And it's because of these pressures that people do often try to pass. It's also because of these pressures that for people who don't pass easily, they can experience a very high degree of discrimination. So think about where the gender binaries exist. And the first place they exist in for the majority of the population is when they wake up in the morning and they decide what clothes to wear. Binaries exist in department stores, the toy aisles. Simply walk down a toy aisle and it's very gendered. Really in every aspect of our life we encounter gender binaries, and it is prevalent in our society. Many forms have M and F for sex or gender, and really nothing more. We're trying to change that at OSU slowly. Census forms, for instance, do a very poor job of capturing anybody outside the gender binary. Freedom to marry is often driven by one's gender. As a biological male, before I transitioned, I could legally have married my partner, my current partner, in the state of Oregon. Now that I've transitioned, I cannot yet. Driver's licenses are M's and F's, and really not many other options at the moment. Same with passports. Prisons are especially problematic, and there are individuals who are placed in persons that are associated with their biological sex and not their gender identity, and as such face huge discrimination as well as simply safety issues. Bathrooms, we have situations where individuals can walk into a bathroom and be harassed even though they are in the bathroom that is associated with the gender that they're presenting. And of course we have some religions that are strongly have strong views regarding gender and gender identity as well as sexual orientation. Gender expression outside of the gender binary is something that's not peculiar to the United States culture or Western European culture. In India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, the Hijra culture is basically a third gender. Males who present as females, once pretty well incorporated into the societies there, now marginalized largely after colonization by Western cultures, and now beginning to regain some recognition in those countries, at least some of those countries. In Samoa and in Tonga, the transgender communities were once really high-profile members of their society, but again, when they were colonized by Western Europeans, that Western European mindset around gender binary came into being, and there is a higher degree of discrimination against the Fa'afafine and Fakalete communities. They do tend to move much more easily between gender roles than perhaps transgender people in other societies, however. Native American Two-Spirit, and you should probably talk with Quo Lee about his experience. Native American Two-Spirit are much more holistic in their gender expression and sexual orientation than the kind of analytical approach that we've taken so far. The people that I've talked with indicate that they do fall between male and female in both their gender identity and or their sexual orientation, and really represents a continuum of a personal identity more than anything else. And again, these individuals move freely between the gender roles in society and were pretty highly respected in many Native American communities historically, but with Western European values being placed on many tribes, some of that has broken down. Iran has an interesting take on gender identity in that they view sex change as explicitly framed as a cure for diseased abnormality. That is, they will pay for a sex change for an individual who is transgender. However, if their person is in a gay relationship or lesbian relationship, that is strictly forbidden. So consequently, somebody in a gay or lesbian relationship may feel pressure to transition even though they're not transgender. Other places, Argentina has put into place some of the most liberal rules on changing gender, which is rather surprising given the macho society that many Latin American countries espouse. There are even issues in Western Europe. Sweden recently overturned a law requiring that trans people be sterilized, that is, they go through gender reassignment surgery, which is basically sterilization, before they'll change documents. 24 countries in Europe still do that. Germany, for intersex individuals, Germany recently allowed recording of a third gender on birth certificates. That's a huge step forward in that country. So we have a variety of gender expressions. They've been with us for many, many generations and will be into the future. It's very clear that the gender binary is not the correct way of thinking about gender and gender expressions, but some of the Western European and Western civilization values have interfered with people's expression of gender outside of that binary.